Thanks for joining me today on Down to Earth Trekking. I'm Jake, and this is the third video in my series of videos where I outline all the different gear that I bring with me on a weekend backpacking trip. And so today specifically, I'm going to cover my camp stove and cookware setup that I bring with me when I'm on the trail. Let's start off with my camp stove, and this whole setup is actually 3 pieces of gear that I buy individually. So you've got the stove, the fuel cartridge, and the stabilizers. And so the stove is made by GSI. It's the Glacier camp stove, and it's a very lightweight, durable, and powerful stove. It's got 5-inch diameter support arms on top, which I find to be more than enough space to hold my big old pot that I use for most of my cooking, as well as any other little pans or anything that I might use. And the adjustment arm here on the side controls how much fuel output you're getting and therefore how quickly you're going to boil water. But whether you got the adjustment arm barely cracked open or on full blast, you're getting a whole lot of heat out of this stove. So no matter really where you have it, it's going to boil water fairly quickly. And so next is your fuel cartridge, and the stove runs on butane. So this is a butane fuel canister, and this canister specifically is also made by GSI, but there's many different brands that make fuel canisters, and they all function about the same. So it really doesn't matter which one you get. The stove screws into the top, and the stabilizers attach to the bottom of the canister on just about any brand that you're going to buy. So you can definitely just shop around whenever it comes to buying butane, but they do make smaller sizes than this canister. And so for a weekend backpacking trip, you could probably get away using a little bit smaller canister. But if you're going to be on a longer trip, they do make larger ones as well. So you can buy a fuel canister according to the length of the trip that you're going to be on. And then as for the stabilizers, they're just mainly for my peace of mind, and I know that the stove is going to be stable no matter what kind of terrain it's on. And I do use this big pan for most of my cooking, and so I just wanted to know that the stove, there's no chance of the stove falling over. So as far as the stabilizers go, they just clip on to the bottom of the fuel canister, and you can unclip them, and whenever they're not in use, the stabilizers fold down into a little triangle, so they take up even less room. And I forgot to mention earlier, the stove comes with this little bag, and so whenever everything's broken down, the stove and the stabilizers will fit in the bag. And then I also like to carry my lighter in the bag. That way I always know where my lighter's at, and I'm not having to go search through my backpack and look for my lighter. I know it's always with my stove, and I'm good to go. I really hope you're enjoying the video. If you are, make sure that you hit that thumbs up button. I really appreciate the support. And if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. That way you won't miss out on the next video in this series. Next, we're going to cover all the cookware that I bring with me whenever I go on a backpacking trip. I'll primarily only bring 2 pieces of gear. That's going to be my large pan and my long spoon. But if I do go on a group backpacking trip, I'll also bring my cup and my spork. So, the large pan is made by Butane. It is the Optimus Terra Express HE. And this is probably one of my favorite pieces of cookware that I've used over the years in backpacking. That's primarily because it has this heat sink, or this ring on the bottom. It's got waffled metal all the way around it. And so what this ring does is, as your pan sits on top of your stove, it's getting a whole lot of heat from their burner. And instead of that heat just concentrating right in the center of your pot, the heat sink absorbs all of it and helps to evenly distribute the heat along the bottom of your pan. That way you don't end up getting a burn spot in the middle of your pan while you're cooking food in it. And if you're boiling water, this heat sink just helps to boil water even quicker. Usually I can boil water in about a couple minutes with this piece of cookware. And the pot holds just a little less than about a gallon of water if it was filled up all the way. So you can boil easily like a 1/4 gallon at a time, not have to worry about it overflowing or anything. And some other cool features about this pot are the lid. It has these little steam vents on it, but if you're boiling pasta or rice, you can use those little vents as a way to drain the water. And then The little handles that it has on the side have a little rubber coating on them, so even as the pot itself heats up, the rubber helps to insulate your hands and keep them from getting burned whenever you're picking up the pot. And so I definitely recommend this piece of cookware if you're looking for like a large cooking pot or something that you can mix ingredients in, as well as just boil water whenever you go backpacking. And next, for my second piece of gear that I bring, is my long spoon. And this spoon is made by Sea to Summit. It's about 8 inches long, and probably my favorite thing about this spoon is that it's long enough to reach the very bottom of a dehydrated meal like a Mountain House or Mountain Ops or a Peak Refuel, any one of these brands that come in the bag dehydrated already. This spoon reaches the very bottom without your fingers having to like get in and get the sauce and all the food nastiness on your hands. It keeps your hand well clear outside of the bag, but still allows you to get to the bottom. And so that's probably my favorite thing about this spoon, as well as anytime I'm making my own meals, whenever I'm out on the trail, I got plenty of room with the handle to mix and stir anything I've got in my pan and keep my hands clean as well. And so then, like I said, if I do go on a group backpacking trip, I will bring my aluminum cup and my spork. And this is just a big aluminum cup that I bought, I think at like Walmart or something. I've had it so long I can't even remember where I got it from. But it's lightweight, holds a healthy portion of food if I need. And then if I ever want, I can also make like a hot drink or something in the morning. And then I've got my spork. And this spork is made by Light My Fire. And I have always enjoyed using the spork because you get the whole spoon fork combo. You got it all in one place. The knife edge, you're not going to be cutting a steak with it, but it works if you need to in a pinch. The only complaint about these spoons by Light My Fire is that if you're hiking and it's getting cold and around freezing, they do tend to become brittle. And I've had multiple snap in half. And so then you've got individual fork and spoon. But definitely much less handle room. So, I mean, if you're looking for just a good, reliable utensil, the long spoon by Sea to Summit is definitely my recommendation. But if you also want like the spork spoon combo, then Light My Fire does make a good product. But don't be surprised if it does end up snapping in half if you're out backpacking in fairly cold temperatures. That's really my only complaint with that. So that kind of covers my whole cookware setup that I'll bring with me. Before I go, I'd like to add a couple more things. And so with your cookware, once you've made dinner, you've gotten everything dirty, so you're going to have to clean it. And so to start off with cleaning, I make sure to have no leftovers. So I'll make my food, and then I'll make sure to have it all eaten. That way I'm not throwing out any food scraps, and it just simplifies the cleaning process. So once all the food's gone, I'll take my large pan and I'll put some water in it and just boil that water. And with that boiling water then, I'll kind of slosh it around in the pan and use that to clean and rinse it off. And if I have my cup with me, I'll pour some water into the cup, swish it around, and then rinse off my spork and my spoon. And once I've gotten everything cleaned and rinsed, then I'll take whatever water's left and I'll go and rainbow it out, which is really just a way of pouring out the water so that it disperses across the ground as opposed to just pouring it all out into one spot. And so, secondly, I just want to add some warnings or some caution for the stove. So whenever I'm setting up my stove, I always make sure to clear out a little area of barren ground. That way, if for whatever reason the stove does fall over while it's on, there's no ready fuel for it to ignite. And also with the stove, after it's been running for a while, the stove top gets really, really hot. So once you've turned it off and you're done using it, just let it cool off for a little bit. Don't immediately go to start disassembling your stove, or you're going to end up with a nice little cross mark burned into your hand. So just let your stove sit for a little while after using it. Let it all cool off. That way you're not gonna accidentally burn yourself. Well, that really sums up my camp stove and cookware that I take with me on a backpacking trip. Just know that there are many different variations of stoves as well as cookware goes. You can get some stoves that don't even use butane. You've got white gas stoves and some that just run off wood and little pieces of sticks and branches that you find while you're backpacking. And then as far as cookware goes, you can get complete sets that come with multiple pans and pots and bowls and plates. And same with the utensils. You can get different spoons and forks, and there's a whole lot of different options out there. So you just got to find what works for you. And at the end of the day, you're the one using the gear. So find something you like using. And until next time, keep on trekking.